1 week until the UK election, and Boris Johnson has unveiled a list of pledges he'd roll out if he won a majority. The Prime Minister says a defence review, more school funding, immigration legislation would be a priority on top of delivering Brexit, and a tax-cutting budget within 100 days of winning. Well, joining us now is Joe Twyman, Deltapoll co-founder and director. David Bloom of HSBC is still with us. Joe, you're really one of the architects of these, digital revolution in Britain. You were telling me, the architect of the only poll that was right in 2017. Do we trust the polls? Which poll do you trust?
I look at things not in terms of right or wrong, but in terms of degrees of accuracy. And in 2017, the MRP poll that YouGov published was the most accurate, and I was involved with the development of that. Since then, we've had an MRP poll this time around. Now, MRP is just a complicated way of doing a geographically varied poll such as this, and it attracts an awful lot of attention. But all polling is subject to a margin of error, including the MRP poll, and it's only ever a snapshot of public opinion at the time. What we've seen in terms of the trends over the last few weeks has been initially an increase in the lead for the Conservatives, and more recently a decline in that lead. But the overall story consistently has been that in normal times the Conservatives would be on for a majority, but there are reasons to think that this time it might be different because of the individual complexities with constituencies and the influence that Brexit could cast over this whole thing.
So what is this, an emotional connection to the leader? If you were to redesign a poll, which I know you're working on at the moment, how do you correctly poll? If you look at the polls currently, right, for our international audience, some have the Conservatives at 13 percentage points in terms of lead, the others at 6%. So what is the chance that Labour actually win a majority next Thursday?
The Labour win a majority. I think it's a tiny, tiny chance that Labour win a majority. But Labour don't need to win a majority to go into power. Because if the Conservatives don't get a majority, then Labour could form some sort of partnership with the other parties. I think it's unlikely, but it's by no means outside the realms of possibility. I would say there's a 15 to 20% chance, but of course there's still 1 week remaining. And this week on Friday we have the final leaders debate between Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn, and then we have a whole weekend of headlines in the Sunday papers, which may or may not prove to move the dial.
Joe, we're absolutely thrilled to have you on with your landmark work. We really hope we can have you on often through this election cycle. Joe, in the last 24 hours, the New York Times in America has written about Leeds, England, and the knocking of doors. As well, our Therese Raphaelis. Let's look at the morning must read here from the wonderful Therese Raphael. It is absolutely brilliant and a must read for Americans. The United Kingdom campaign seems to be going the Prime Minister's way, but the polls can't capture what's happening at the street level. That's Mr. Twyman's work. FX traders aren't buying Johnson's line that it's a close contest. Elections are still fought largely by party activists who knock on doors, and then she kills us with some statistics. 44% of Tory members said they spend no time campaigning versus 33% of Labour members, and then a stunning chart on the great age divide. Joe, on the knocking of doors, which is the heart of the United Kingdom experience, how does the age divide play in?
Well, it is hugely important. Labour members tend to be much younger, Conservative members much older, and so the number of people, and also the number of people available, is much larger for Labour than it is for the Conservatives. But all of the parties have made an effort to knock on doors as often and as frequently as they can in this election, because for all the talk of the sophisticated data modelling that the parties are doing and the social media campaigns that they have launched, there's consistent evidence to show that there is still no substitute for human contact. Knocking on doors and, crucially, engaging with candidates and voters, that's massively important.
This is fascinating, Joe, because in America, we stopped knocking on doors. The reality in America is that TV. Is the political process in your world constrained because you can't do TV like in America? So the only thing left is to go out and knock on doors. And as the New York Times says, it's some risk to women candidates.
Whether it's a risk to women candidates is debatable, I would say. But certainly the fact that politicians cannot pay for advertising on British television makes an enormous difference. There has been, over the last 15, 20 years, a huge emphasis on social media, websites, and even viral videos and that sort of thing. And while that has an impact, and there's no doubt that parties would be crazy to ignore such techniques, there is still no substitute for knocking on doors. There are 650 individual constituencies all up for election in this contest next Thursday, and the result will be decided by the performance of the parties in each of those 650 contests. And so it's really, really important that candidates speak to as many people as they can to try and engage those people within the process, because a lot of attention is paid to the parties that people support. But of course, another crucial aspect is whether people decide to turn out or not, and the impact that that could have in Conservative-held Remain-leaning constituencies and Labour-hold Leave-leaning constituencies could bring about quite a different picture in terms of the seats than we're seeing in the national picture in terms of the votes.